Hello again from my front porch. Actually, not even the front porch. I'm not even on a back porch. I'm in the dressing room at Sheriff Sam's Saloon at Adventureland. Why am I in the dressing room of Sheriff Sam's Saloon at Adventureland? That was really hard to get out. Because I'm here with Ben Ulin. Hey, Ben, nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
Now, Ben.
Welcome.
Thank you.
To my house.
to
my summer home.
To his glorious summer home. That's probably true. Now, Ben, if you've been out to Adventureland and been to Sheriff Sam's Saloon and watched the magic show, you've watched Ben. Now, how do I know that's the case? Well, because Ben just celebrated an anniversary this year out here at Adventureland. It was how many years?
30 years. My 30th year.
30 years. You've been doing the magic show every day at Adventureland.
I do shows every day the park is open. Mm-hmm. Not every show that's been out here does that. Some just go from Memorial Day to Labor Day, and but I'm here every
what a guy!
Every day.
What a guy! So if you're able to come out any of these last couple of weekends, you're going to get just as good a show as anyone got at any other time they came out to see Ben. Just fantastic. And
yeah, by now we've got all the bugs worked.
Yeah.
So,
it's almost right.
The best of the material that we did this year.
You're just getting ready to peak. So, now, I've noticed you do at least 2 shows. You stagger, or is it multiple throughout the day? In those 6 shows, how many different shows are there?
It's 3 different shows that we repeat once. Mm-hmm. 2 of those shows are what I would consider a traditional speaking magic show, which you'd expect from a magician at an amusement park. Mm-hmm. And then there's this one show that we developed, I think I'm going on 10 years now with that. It's called The Glow Show, and it's a black light show.
Ooh, yeah.
That there's no speaking in it. It's all done to music. Part of the things I was interested in early on in my career, way back in my college days, was mime. I did a lot of mime and studied that a little bit. And all the way through my career, I've been happy trying out non-speaking magic shows, non-speaking tricks and things where everything has to be communicated through
or what you're doing
your
carries the story as opposed to what you're saying.
And for many years out here at Adventureland, I would have a speaking show, and then I'd have a second show that was a non-speaking show. That was again this kind of Charlie Chaplin character. Yeah. Well, this all came together then, like I said, 10 years ago when I got interested in trying this blacklight show. It allowed me to kind of put all those skills together, and so I was very comfortable with the character that we developed. It doesn't do any speaking; it's all done under this black light. But so that show it's evolved. I had enough time now. I'm feeling more comfortable with it, and adding some new things. And so it's an exciting, different kind of show if you're expecting just normal.
So now the black light thing. If you go see the Blue Man Group. They do some blacklight stuff. If you watch the talent shows on TV, the America's Got Talent and things like that, every so often they'll have some kind of blacklight kind of thing there. So people might mistakenly think, oh, that's a common thing. That's everybody's doing that. But we were chatting about this before, and apparently, at least as a magic show, that's not as common. That what you're doing is you're kind of blazing some trails here with us.
Yes, and thank you for recognizing that, because a lot of blacklight shows are put on by puppeteers. Mm-hmm. It makes the workers of the puppets kind of vanish, and so you're just focused on just the characters of the puppets. Dancers do a good job with that. There's very few magicians nowadays that are doing this kind of a show, and we do take it a different. I'm not out just to show you this spectacle of things that can go in slow motion and stretch and all. I really kind of want to maintain this attitude of a magician performing this, and so magical things happen. And there's a few things in the show I think will stump you. You even though you kind of recognize what's going on, you'll go, well, I don't know how he did that. So I'm still after that ultimate experience of magic.
Well, don't give anything away. No, you gotta come see it. And again, you got 2 more weekends here at Adventureland. You can still come out and see it. Now, which shows do you do the blacklight? Because you do 6. Which are
the blacklight show requires a lot more staging. So there's carpets, and there's special curtains that are put up, and special lighting's put in place, and there's a lot of things. So what we do is we do that at noon, the first show of the day, where everything's set up. And then we do it the last show of the day. So it's noon and 5. And then at 5, then, of course, we can set everything up and leave it for the next morning. We don't have to tear it down again. And
set it back up for noon the next day.
Noon and 5 are the glow shows. And then we alternate throughout the day. The 1 and the 2, the 1 and the 3 o'clock is one of the traditional shows, and the 2 and the 4 is the other speaking show. So
there you go. So plan to come and watch at 3, at 4, and at 5. Got it covered.
Perfect plan. Perfect plan.
All right. So now, 30 years you've been out here at Adventureland. Do you recall when you first started at Adventureland? When you first got the gig and started into it? What was the experience like for you at that point?
Well, I had been, I was still sort of stretching my wings on magic and what kind of performer I was going to be and all that. So I had done a couple of shows that had, well, more than a couple, I guess, 20 shows maybe, where I'd done some illusions, some bigger tricks that I'd done with an assistant that helped me out. That I'd constructed those, created those, and they were my ideas. And then I'd also been doing a lot of comedy clubs. I got into that, and birthday parties and family shows and everything. But I was doing a lot of corporate work. Companies were hiring me to come in and work for them. And so that's where Adventureland first became aware of me. I didn't come to Adventureland. I never thought about working out here. But I got called up by them out of the blue because they were familiar with the companies that were hiring me to entertain for the companies out at the Adventureland Resort, at the hotel. And even in the park, they have got it, the Palace and a couple of places where they can have luncheons. And so the companies were hiring me to come in and do something for the whole group, and then they'd let everybody go and enjoy the rest of the park.
Let that be a lesson to anybody who, you're doing entertaining at a resort place like that or something. You just never know where those roads will go.
You never do, exactly. So, yeah, I was called, and I came in, and at the time, I didn't have an assistant. I didn't have any bigger illusions, and when they were asking me to come do the show out here, I said, well, yeah, I'd like the opportunity. I don't know that I have a show that's big enough to fill this stage. Because I was just working out a briefcase.
Can't show my finger around.
The vanishing dime trick that Steve Martin used to do. Yeah, those of you in the back, I'd have to stand up to see it. So, yeah, we made an arrangement that I was to, hire an assistant, and they gave me some extra money to buy some props, to come in some larger things, and so that's kind of how it started. But in those days, I don't think that there was no acts that they hired over 2 years in a row. 2 years was the maximum limit.
Well, and that makes sense, because I'm thinking like what used to be the Soda and Sounds. I think it's called something else now, but it used to be with the stage that came up and things. They used to have the young group bands in there, singers and stuff. But if you saw the same people even twice in a row, same groups, that was different.
Yeah, well, the Palace, it had the ice skating show one year. They had the Chinese acrobats.
The amazing acrobats of Taipei.
Exactly. But they never kept them more than 2 years.
Yeah,
and then they would revolve them in and out. So I don't know how I slipped under that radar. I was told...
Apparently he's just that good.
Well, I was told one year, maybe 10 years in, Jack Kratz, the owner of the park, we were signing contracts for that year, and he just looked up and he said, "Do you know why you've been here all this many years?" And I was expecting some sort of compliment, because I'm good or whatever. No, he said, "Because I don't even know you're in the park." and it was sort of a backhanded compliment. I didn't know how to take it at first, and thanks, I guess. I realized later what he meant by that. I realized that, he walks in, every morning he sits down, he's got a clipboard full of all the things that have to be repaired, changed, disciplined.
Problems to deal with.
Right. Yep. And I was never on that clipboard. And that's why he didn't know I was in the park, because the shows were always on time. There was nobody complaining. And so...
It's like the old cliche of, just because if the principal at school knows your name, that may not be a good thing.
It may not be a good thing. Right. You don't want to be on that list. So, yeah, that's where it started. And we've just had a very evolving relationship since then. They allowed me to put in a magic shop. They eventually allowed me to hire my own techs and allow me to...
Yeah, because you sell several interesting tricks. If you come out to see the show, he's got a little... Over in the corner, he's got a little display area where he's got a lot of great starter magic tricks and
entry-level things.
And guides, how-to instructions. I used to do magic tricks or illusions or whatever you want to call them back years ago when I was working with children's church stuff.
Okay.
And there were several things in his display case. I thought, I use that, because all of mine were very amateur level.
Well, magic's a great thing to get kids involved, and I also I think that I say this knowing a good magic trick is a little bit like knowing a good joke. If you have a good joke to tell, everybody laughs. It's a way to make somebody smile, and magic's kind of the same way. If you've got something you can carry with you, and you always have a way to show something interesting, it's a way to make a friend. It's all that. So I don't know.
Although when you become a dad, then it doesn't matter whether the joke is funny or not. You're going to tell it anyway.
That's right.
In fact, the less funny it is, the more dad joke it is. So
that's because our audience, they can't leave.
That's also because the motivation isn't necessarily to make them laugh; it's to make them cringe. It's all in the motivation too. So now I have to. I want to talk to you about your influences. And how you got into doing magic, and what continues to influence you. And I'm going to use it as a really odd segue. You folks may have noticed the lights kind of flicker and dim a bit. I was joking that it's the ghost of Harry Houdini who's here in the room with. He's actually on the posters back up here behind Ben in the background here, and Ben does some of Houdini's tricks, and I will say this, that at one of the shows that I watched him at this last weekend when Waldinger had their big company gathering out here, as someone who appreciates history as well, while I enjoy the tricks, they're fantastic. I was very impressed. I also really enjoyed the little bit of history lesson that we got about Harry Houdini. That you not only explained how he would do the trick, but you gave some additional insight into when this is who Houdini really was. This is how he gets portrayed, and this is stuff that people tend to leave out. This is Harry Houdini for real, and I thought that was really fascinating. And to me, it enhanced enjoyment of watching the performance, watching the trick. So I thought that was. For me, I thought that was really great. And if you want to know what I'm talking about, come and watch the show. But let's talk about what got you into magic and what got you on the path.
Well, I have, I think, a pretty standard intro into magic. It was books out of a library. I lived half a block from here in Des Moines, Franklin Avenue Library. I will always point to them and give them a plug because that's where it started for me. I read a lot of different things, and magic was just one of those subjects that kind of grew on me. And then when we went on family vacations and little touristy areas, if they had a magic shop, I usually would go in and buy something. So I ended up with a few tricks that were just kids' basic interest in magic. It was in high school then that a magic shop opened up at Merle Mall, again here in Des Moines, and I was being pressured by mom and dad to get a job, and I knew a little bit about magic. I knew some of the tricks that they had in their shop, so I went in and applied for a job there and ended up managing that place for 3 or 4 years.
You managed the theatrical shop?
No, the magic shop.
Oh, the magic shop.
Right,
oh, okay.
Yeah, not the theatrical shop.
But that's a good place too. Magic shop's a great place too.
Right. So it was there that, again, I had up until that point, I don't remember seeing a magician. I knew I'd probably seen one on the Ed Sullivan Show, early on. So you got into magic because you were just playing with a trick. It wasn't that you'd actually been inspired by watching somebody. I had no idea that magic could be a career. I had no idea that was. I think that's kind of
an interesting, because you said you have similar stories. A lot of people, but usually when I've heard people that are not more professional, but I mean, the big whatever. When they're talking about how they'll start saying, well, when I was a kid, my parents took me to see so and so, or when I saw this one or that one, I thought I got to be able to do that. And a lot of times it all starts with watching magicians doing their craft. I think it's fascinating that you created the passion in and yourself based off the tricks.
I have a big imagination. I always liked reading. I read a lot of science fiction. I read a lot of folklore and things that were on more fantasy side of things. Yeah. So magic books when I was younger, they were if you've ever read a magic book, and I'm sure you have, they're usually cut
the beginner ones.
They're all the same in terms of they start off and they describe the effect that the audience is going to see, and then they tell you a little bit about the method that's going to be used to create that effect, and then they give you the presentation, which is the combination of those two things to show you how to do the trick. Gives you but the effect is like it incited my imagination, right? And so, however, the method
tapped
then
into that creativity,
exactly,
yeah.
which is the same thing that all these other books were doing, these stories. So I was able to imagine these things, and then the method made that something practical, something I could do. I could actually. So to me, it was like a science fiction book that you actually got to do the science, that you actually got to do something with.
That's an interesting take on it. That they're reading about magic was like a science fiction book that you actually got to do the science fiction that you were reading about.
Right. So
interesting.
I think that's why, and I've always been hands-on kind of person. All of that kind of went away when I started to get more involved in athletics. I ran track and I wrestled and I played football and I was in judo for about 4 years in there. And all of those things, again, they're very active. They're very hands-on, very, very things. So I kind of have always had that kind of bent. So, but when in high school, then when this magic shop came along, then getting a job there was it was not about being a professional magician. Well, I enjoyed being a magic salesman. I enjoyed, and I'll tell you, I credit the magic shop for my style and my interest, because understand, in a magic shop, I don't get to determine what the order of the tricks that I'm going to do. It's usually the people that come in that say, "Oh, what does this do?" And then what does that do? And what does this do? So in my mind, I'm having to make transitions between tricks, different tricks all the time. It was never about a show. It was never about, oh, you start off with this as the opener and you close with that as the finale, and you got to figure out how to carry everything in a bag. No, it was all in counters. I just bounced around, and I also got to look at this person and kind of size them up and say, they're looking for a Christmas present for their grandson. Well, okay, this may be an older person, but I'm going to show them things that I think will fit for a grandson. I have to think about their experience and what they're wanting. And that idea of having to size people up and change what I'm showing them and how I'm presenting that, I think became very instrumental as far as the toolbox that I use as a magician nowadays. Because I have no problems if it's a birthday party with kids, if it's a senior center with all older senior citizens, seniors, if it's a comedy club with a drinking crowd, if it's an amusement park crowd where there's lots of families involved. What I do, it changes. It's fluid, and it all came from my experiences in the magic shop, having to size people up and change what you're doing to meet what you think is going to be the best experience for them.
And that, again, that's yet another example of, when you first got the job at the magic store, you were probably thinking, "Yay, I got to work at a magic store. I get to make money doing this." And yet here you are, all these many years later, and you're looking back at that as being really a pivotal moment that set the stage for the rest of your life from that point on. Not that you would have recognized it at that point, but you never know where those things are gonna happen.
Right. From there, it was people seeing me there in the shop that asked me to do if I did birthday parties, and that's where it started. So I did birthday parties. That moved into kind of company picnics and things like that,
corporate events, and stuff.
And then the corporate events came later. I think magic was a lot more associated with kids back then, so it was a lot more family-oriented kind of things. And it wasn't until later, I guess, that some people thought that my sense of humor or whatever was intelligent enough. I wasn't a clown, I wasn't slapstick. It wasn't that. So then that got me into,
you weren't a body stand-up comic, but you were kind of a blend in between.
Yeah, I was not a comic at all at that point. I really didn't think of myself as being funny, but I had a good sense. I had good energy, and of course back then I was youthful and cute, right? That helped, right?
Timing,
right. So later I fell in. It was in college that I ended up at an open mic night again here. I'd been in San Francisco actually working on the streets. I did that for almost a year and learned a lot of stuff out there, and came back to Des Moines to spend the holidays with my family. And there was an open mic night that appeared downtown. And I went into that thinking I'm just going to storm. Des Moines going to wonder, where does this kid come from? I was an entertainer. I knew what I was doing, and I bombed at this open mic night. It was this older drinking crowd. It's the first time I'd ever been in a bar for that kind of a crowd. I'd worked on the streets with diversity of things and birthday parties and all these things, but never in a bar setting. And there was one thing that I was doing. I was juggling scarves. These chiffon scarves. And back then, again, this is 1980. That was novel. It was really creative to this slow motion juggling. And I thought, up to that point, everybody had seen me. Whoa, that's cool. We've never seen anybody juggle scarves. Well, somebody out in the audience yelled, "Hey, did you steal those from your mom?" Because back then, right, they were what mothers were. They were hats for their hair that they did at the beauty parlor, right? And that's all they were. And so I didn't make that connection, and someone else did. And so they were laughing at me rather than with me. And that was a pivotal point. I went home that night very discouraged, and I suddenly realized that I was expecting people to see talent in these skills. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't really bringing, the scars weren't particularly hard to juggle, and the audience read through that, I think. And so I learned that night that I had to make connections with the audience. That night was the night that if I'm going to do something with a prop, I have to know what the audience thinks of it. How do they relate to it? What is their take on that? Because and ultimately, what are they going to make fun of me for by using this? Yeah. And I resolved that I'm going to pull these things out, and I'm going to make fun of them first. And I'm going to be funnier than anything you're going to say, because I have time to think about it, right? I got time
beat you to it.
Exactly. And that is when I first became a comedy magician, and that really headed me in the right direction. And that was the moment I really think of as when I figured out who I was and what I was going to attempt with this.
So let's leap ahead to now, to current time now. You do some fairly elaborate tricks that you do. I mean, you do smaller ones, but some of the tricks you do are I mean, they're Houdini tricks. You know, I mean, they're not like, you know, some amateur isn't just going to go out on a weekend and learn this and do this kind of thing. But we were talking before about one of the Houdini tricks that you've added your own flair to, and that came out of your desire, which from what we were just talking about the becoming more of a comedy magician, but recognizing the audience reaction stuff. But talk a bit about the theatrical nature of how you've shifted from being just a magician who demonstrates, look at the skill that I have as a magician, to look at me as a performer, as an entertainer who is doing magic.
Yeah, we were specifically talking about two different versions of the same trick that Houdini used to use early on, and both one of the versions that I came up with is a much more serious version. One of them is definitely a comedy version, and the comedy
that's one
version,
I saw, and it was very funny.
The comedy version is the audience
don't give it away
should probably they'll recognize that it that it's something that we've done before, but it's not going to seem like that. It's going to seem like all these mistakes are being made and all these things are happening for the first time. And of course, you think about it, any thinking person is going to realize, well, no, they do this trick, twice a day, But
you know, it's like how many times have we all watched Who's on First? Abbott and Costello,
right?
Granted, there are different variations of it because they would play with it a little bit now and again, would do it, but it's basically the same routine every single time, and yet I challenge you to listen to it and not laugh.
Right.
Why do we laugh? We all know that it's an act. We all know Costello is not surprised by what's happening. We all know that the whole routine is set up to create the confusion, and yet we laugh. Why? Because of Costello's reaction. Because of how angry and frustrated he gets, we all laugh hysterically because that reaction, that theatrical dynamic, makes this routinely done thing still funny.
Yeah. Can I share with you a little timeline here? This is something I like to explain to magicians, and I think it's interesting to listen. It's interesting to think about for laymen as well. This came from an interview with Doug Henning back in the 70s. It was a magazine that I read that they'd done an interview with him, and he described this timeline for magicians. Okay, a magician's life on a timeline, and he says that everybody, not just magicians, but everybody starts off as children. We watch magicians, and all we're focused on is the effect. It's just the effect.
How they do that?
A coin pulling out from their hair, the rabbit coming out of the hat, the person floating in the air. Kids don't even realize there's a method. They're completely focused on just what is. They don't think about the connivery behind it or anything. And so magic at that point, focused on just the effect, it shows a world that we'd like to live in. Right? We'd love to live in a world where coins actually hid out behind our ear, or the rabbits lived in hats, and people you could just float out of the air. We
call that Wonderland.
Right. Some adults, some people don't ever grow out of that. I hear people
and they become magicians
all the time. No. They're the people that come up and say, "Oh, I love magic. I don't want to know how it works. I just love watching it." They're the people that their imagination is enjoying the world that magic can present. Then kids, some kids move on out of that stage, and they learn more about Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny, and they realize that magicians have methods to these effects that they do. And then they focus entirely on the method, only the method. It is now figuring out the method. It's trying to figure out it, right? So these are the people now we deal with. A lot more people seem to be in the audience that are method focused, because they're the people that want to sit up close to figure out the tricks. They're the people that want to look up the sleeve. They're the people that want to shuffle the deck. They're the
they go from how did he do that to how did he do that?
Right. Watch his other hand. And their whole take on magic is that a magician's job is to fool you, and your job as an audience is to figure it out. And a lot of people, they don't ever get beyond that.
That's kind of a sad way to watch magic.
It's adversarial. It's a competition.
Because how do you enjoy what you're watching if you're... Anyway,
sorry. All it is the method. Okay. But a lot of people hang there, and that's frustrating for me. I'll tell you why in a moment. So then, you as you learn more about magic, eventually you cross this line where you start performing it, where you now know enough methods that you begin doing it for other people. Now, the immediate impulse for most people who cross that line is to show you the trick and then show you how you did it, to explain it, because it's about mastery of these methods. The methods is the most important part. Let me show you the method. Let me show you how it works. Well, then that dissolves away as people grow out of that stage. There's still that stage right now on YouTube. There's all kinds of kids that buy a trick. They show it, and then they show you how to do it. Okay, so not everybody moves out of that stage. And then they move into a stage where they begin having some success with some of the tricks, the methods, and they decide, well, maybe I won't show them how I do this one. This I like being this response I'm getting. And then magicians move into this area where the method still motivates the show. The method is still the priority. And what I mean by that is they choose the effects that they do because the method is easy to do. And so they would choose it because that method is easy. They don't have to work so hard. And they might choose a certain method because it's affordable. Well, it's only $10. Oh, well, I can do that. Sometimes magicians will choose a method because it fits in their pocket. They can carry it, and they can do magic wherever they go. That to them is an incentive to have that. It has nothing to do with whether it's a great trick for the audience. The fact that it fits in your pocket, it has nothing to do with it. It doesn't make it the best effect. It just makes it something you can do. If an illusionist wants to float a lady in the air, and he has to decide between a prop that he's got to buy a straight truck to get it portable, or one that'll fit in the back of his car, he might tend to go for the one that fits in the back of his car. Now, that's not the better illusion. It doesn't create the better effect. There's more discrepancies. There's more things that are, I don't know about that, than the big piece, but because it fits in their car. Okay, so method is still driving the effects that they choose. It's still the motivating. Why they do this is because the method fits some sort of criterion. Well, Doug Henning then explains, and then there's the other end of the spectrum is when the magician stops making methods the most important thing, and they start making the effect the most important thing. That when magic becomes something, when it becomes something you're trying to communicate, when it's an experience, and that's the point of it. Is it's making you, in my case, laugh, making you think. You were impressed with the history about Houdini. I made you think about Houdini in a different way. So for me, the method was secondary. I had to do a good method. I had to work on that. But when I look at a trick, I think one of the most misunderstood ideas of magic is that every effect has only one method. So if you're going to float somebody in the air, there's only one way you do that. If you're going to cut somebody in half, there's only one way you do that. If you're going to make a card appear from out of your hand, there's only one way to do that. And that's a misconception. There are hundreds of ways. As a matter of fact, I brought this book just for this. I knew I was going to discuss this. This book, this is a very expensive book, by the way. I have one.
Suspensions and Levitation.
It's the encyclopedia.
Mickey Hades.
Of suspensions. And there's 90 different methods.
Look,
I'm not going to open it.
No, I'm not going to open it. But look, this is not a thin little book either. Look at that. This is and he's got some marked here, but they're top secret. That's why it's red.
None of the methods that I know that magicians are using today are in here. They're all methods that have been created since this book has been out.
Wow.
So now, if you think about that effect, making a lady float in the air, okay, there's nothing. It's just a lady in the air. How can you have 90 different ways there's nothing else around, right?
Yeah.
90 different ways,
Wow.
and that's not including the things they're doing. So understand that to me, when I look at a trick, I don't see a method.
Mm-hmm.
I have to build an engine
Mm-hmm.
that's going to efficiently make this effect, this idea that I have in my head, to convey that to you.
So you start at the outcome and work your way backwards.
I think
not just the method to get there, but also what do you need to create for the context to make it entertaining for the audience as well.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I think if you think of music, music opens doors to our minds that we don't normally use. And what I mean by that is we don't normally go through life thinking about musicality.
Mm-hmm.
We don't think of our wording and our when we're communicating with people, we don't think about tempo and rhythm and harmonies.
Yeah.
So when a musician comes along and they put this idea into music, it comes into our head through different doors than what we normally use. Mm-hmm. An artist that draws a painting, paints a painting, we don't think about shadows and perspective and different tones of color. Mm-hmm. But when we see a great piece of art, all of that opens doors that we don't normally use.
That's true. Yeah.
And I think, and this is what Doug Henning was saying, that this point where the effect is most important. Mm-hmm. The effect is all about opening doors in your head to see a world that you normally don't use, and to be able to convey those things. So
that's cool.
To loop that back around, the Houdini thing, I really believe that Houdini has just kind of become this. We don't really think too much about why he was famous or why he was legendary. We know these stories about him, but he made people believe that he was able to escape from things without opening them, and nobody. That's my big point. That's the thing I want to creep into your head. But
obviously, he did open them to get out of them.
He had to,
but he made people believe that he didn't.
At that time, yes, and that's what made him. That was the point. That was the thing that made him so famous. That was the thing that the people made him legendary within his own time period. So
because that was the aspect of the illusion that he created, and it wasn't necessarily an illusion of the trick per se. It was an illusion for the benefit of the entertainment of the audience.
Right, and he didn't make a big thing about that either. He didn't say I can get out of things without opening. He never said that. That was the conclusion that he made other people come to just
by what he did.
It's like. With that particular trick, I was thinking about this the other day. When I watch ice skating, professional ice skating, or competitions, or professional gymnastics, I don't know anything about those sports. And so they get points for things. I don't understand why they get points for those things.
I'm with you.
I don't understand at all why that's more difficult or why that's more impressive or what that is. I like the choice of music they use, right? Okay.
Well, I watch them and they get their score, and I'm like, really? How did you get that score?
We don't understand. So that's what that Houdini thing is about. I put that piece of history in there so that you really can appreciate the difference between unlocking something to get out of it and giving the impression that you can get out of it without unlocking it. That's a whole different.
Yeah, see, the difference is he actually got out of it without opening it.
Yes, I did.
Yes,
I did.
Now. I want to make sure I don't run out of room for my recording space. So I want to make sure we get to one other really big, important thing that I wanted to get to. As I mentioned at the beginning of this, the season in Adventureland is about to wind down. But that doesn't mean that Ben goes on vacation. He doesn't go into hibernation until the park opens back up. Ben actually keeps himself very busy otherwise. You do all kinds. Share with people about some of the other things that you do, and let's talk about how they can contact you if they want to use you for that.
Yeah, I think that's a misconception. A lot of people assume that Adventureland is kind of my main thing, and this is what I put all my focus and my energy in. It takes up a big portion of my summer, and yes. But what I've always done is companies have hired me to come in and do shows, and all kinds of organizations. Certainly, as we go into the holiday season, the end of the year, I do a ton of those, and so you need to book early to get those. Those, but I also do school shows and church shows and other public events and fundraisers. Do a lot of fundraisers for schools and organizations that need to raise funds for things. Chamber of Commerce meetings, will bring me in, and client appreciation things, employee appreciation. So
just about anything.
And I also do close-up magic where I can walk around and do things close-up. I do the comedy show that has a lot of interaction with the audience. I'm a very clean entertainer, but very funny. That's why I can work in so
which sadly is a distinction.
Which is, and which comedy clubs have kind of made a proliferation of I can say anything I want on stage.
Yeah,
kind of.
I'm not a big fan of comedy that is done just by being abrasive, or that people will laugh at me if I am as extremely offensive as I can be, and then people will laugh at how uncomfortable that makes them. Really, but to me that's not very intelligent comedy. That's weak comedy.
Early on, most up and coming comedians, most beginning comedians find that they can punch up any joke with profanity or by using some sort of ticklish, inappropriate scattergory, kind of references and things. It's not necessary, is the thing. They don't. You should be able to be funny without that. And funny is funny, and that. Yes. Well, so anyway, so as far as getting a hold of me to do shows, you can certainly get on the internet. Find me at benulin.com, as long as you know how to spell my name.
Well, it'll be on the screen.
There you go, BENULIN. Okay. I also have a Facebook page. Look up Ben Ulin, comedian magician, and you can ask questions and get a hold of me on Facebook.
He's very responsive too. He or his staff people.
I have a personal assistant that jumps right on things. I'm not always in the office, but she tries to take up all the... Yeah, we are just... There's a lot of power going on. There's a lot of power out here at the Sam's today. And, of course, you can call direct and talk. My phone, 515-270-2626. And love to talk to you about any upcoming events. I can put together shows that are very large. I can put together shows for very small things. Matter of fact, something new I'm just trying out is something I'm calling a house concert. I'd like to see people do more, entertaining in their homes, and there's no reason not to have an entertainer come in, and I'm a great choice for that because, again, it doesn't matter if you have a family thing with all kinds of diversity of ages, or if they're all your workmates or your department or just your neighbors or whatever it is. It's a diversity of people, and magic tends to. We can get through a lot of different, age, gender, culture kind of things that music sometimes doesn't. Not everybody likes country music. Not everybody likes opera. Not everybody likes rock and roll. Not everybody likes rap. And so sometimes it's hard to find a musician that can
or even everybody. A DJ because they tend to have a certain
right. But magic tends to be a pretty universal.
So there you go. You're gonna do even a house party. I'm sitting here thinking now. Obviously, holidays, Christmas, New Year. That's probably bad timing because everybody would want you probably spend time actually with your family. But let's say you're doing.
Well, no, that's the opposite of that.
Oh, really?
I gave up holidays and birthdays and things when this became a profession because a magician understand that when you want to go out on a date night, you're going to go to the comedy club. That's where. I'm working, right? That's where I make my money. If you're going to take your family off on that summer vacation, you come to Adventureland, right?
Sure.
Which is where I'm working. Yeah. So all of those holidays and days, those are the days people get together, they go out and they do that. So I'm the guy you come see. Yeah.
Well,
so a lot of that is...
But if you're planning a family gathering, if you're getting the whole crew together for something and you're having your house, I wish I would known this sooner because I had a book come out in July. And I had a release party at my house. I could have had Ben Ulin. Well, no, Adventureland was still open at that time during the week.
I'm still open in the evenings.
Yeah, well, that's true.
I'm done at 6.
Well, so here coming up on October 2nd, Tuesday night, October 2nd, I have my 51st birthday. It's a karaoke thing down at AJ's on Court Avenue. Come on down.
Yeah,
we'll have you do some table tricks.
And I sing karaoke, so I'll be there.
And he sings karaoke. All right, yes. All right. Well, anyway, Ben, I don't want to take up all your time. I know you're a busy guy. I do appreciate you taking time to chat with me. And seriously, folks, if you're one of the handful of people on the planet that haven't already seen him in action, then you need to come see him in action. But this guy, he's right, Des Moines native, right here in Des Moines, and he has skills that they're right up there with any magician you're going to watch.
Thank you.
So make use of Ben.
Go local, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say go local or go home, but he will come to your home.
I come go local and go home. I'll come there. Yeah.
All right. Stop in because I have a feeling he's been here 30 years. I have a feeling he's still going to be here next year and the year after and the year after. And
I'm current contract is through 2020. So.
Oh, there you go. All right. He's going to be here until he has to come out with a walker.
I'm still going to do.
And then even then,
it'll be the floating walker back then at that time.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And with that, I'll let y'all go, and I'll see you next time from my front porch.